I'm Benj. This is What Could Be Bad, Season 2. I am very excited to be at the Vilar Performing Arts Center, Beaver Creek, Colorado, as part of Mountains and Minds, a mental health summit to strengthen community. The purpose of this summit and this podcast is to elevate and destigmatize mental health conversations. And I'm very happy to introduce Drew Petersen, who is here with me. Drew is a local Coloradan. He is a skier, an ultra runner, and most recently, filmmaker of a film I hope you all choose to watch. It's called Feel It All. It's available on YouTube, so no excuses. Get out there and see it, or stay in and see it. And Drew, thank you for getting on the pod with me, man. Happy to have you here.
Yeah, man, it's like to chat.
Awesome.
Fun to finally do this.
Yeah, we've been talking about it. Well, it's funny, man, because we talked about collaborating probably hours before I talked to James Kenley, who is from Vail Symposium, who helped set this whole thing up. And you and I were like, yeah, we'll find something, you know? And I think like within like a couple weeks, I was like, hey, so I'm coming back to Valley. I was wondering if you'd help, you know? And you were immediately open to it. That was amazing to just, be in a moment that quick that we could potentially collaborate. And we're here now, but I want to address that my intention for today was to show your film, Feel It All. And we had to pivot the way that all this happens. And I want to recognize that like a lot of mental health challenges are adjusting to things you can't control. And the pivot was due to something couldn't control, and you were very gracious about it. You were all about making sure I was supported and I was okay rather than how it affected you. And I, first of all, really appreciate that. And for me, and you, I know also, it's about making the impact. And that's why the pivot happened, is because we want that to connect. And I want to ask you about the other side of your feelings on it, because I was wondering that. I was like, I'll save it for the pod. And here we are. And I want to know, like, because I know your mission is to engage in this conversation. I know we're able to do it now, but not being able to show your film right here in a matter of hours, you know, besides being awesome and sensitive to how it affected me, can you share what that felt like for you, knowing that you had even said, like, my goal was to get this into Vail, to get this into this part of the valley, and to be on the stage at Vilar was a goal of yours. So it's postponed, it's not canceled, but also, that's an amorphous thing.
Yeah, we'll still get to do it. We'll still get to play it on this screen and on this stage. So it's all good. I think like personally, I've worked a lot in the event space,
Hmm.
and in-person events are awesome and impactful, but stressful and difficult to plan. So like that's why I just understand it all. But I think like the difficult part for me with like having to reschedule an event like this, or like trying really hard to get a film somewhere or create an event, is like you said, like my measure of success is impact.
Yeah.
And I always feel an urgency as well to create this impact, because we are in not just a mental health, but a suicide crisis.
Yes.
And uh, it's kind of a, it's like kind of a difficult dichotomy of like, I feel like I carry this urgency and with it a burden of like, if we're able to show the film sooner, if we're able to create these events now, like then maybe we'll be able to save, one, two, three
Yeah.
specific lives in this valley. Um, but that like that would be exhausting, and like we would all burn out on this work. So you just have to or I have to just like sit with it and um,
Yeah.
trust that the longevity and the like sustainability of doing this work and the impact is where the that success comes from.
Yeah, and I mean, you've been extremely active. Like, I first of all, I love, like, if anybody's not following at Drew Peterski, like, please check it out because it's so entertaining. Like, you're awesome on socials, and you've been showing like the work you've been doing, showing the film and engaging the communities that you've been able to reach, and all of those seem really impactful. And I even noticed at the Winter Park Film Festival, you won an award recently. That was this week, I believe. So congratulations. And I want to know, like, how have those been going? What's it like to be doing the work and making the impact?
Yeah, thanks, man. That's the other side is I've been doing a lot of events, so, like,
Yeah.
I'm kinda psyched to have tonight off.
I get that. I get that. Well,
Like, I'm gonna chill. I'm gonna go support another friend, actually,
good.
so, yeah, it's all good, but, yeah, the events, like I said, like, I really believe in in-person experiences and the impact that they can have as a result. So, like, I've had such a variety of events with this film, which has been really fun. I've done these, like, community-centric events where I show the film, but then I combine that with giving a keynote talk that, like, normally would only be accessible in, like, a corporate space, because
Okay.
like, the irony of public speaking is that most of it happens in private.
Yeah.
So, like, trying to bring that, like, flavor and that impact to mountain towns and to communities that wouldn't be able to access that, and,
Uh-huh.
either free events or, like, a $15 ticket that, like, a 25-year-old ski bum, like, is stoked to go to. Like, they're not getting into the, like, entrepreneurship conferences that I've spoken at
Yeah.
MIT, you know?
Yeah.
And then we had these events that were we did group runs followed by film screenings, and that was super cool. Like a little bit smaller, more intimate, and like really grassroots level. Like when I was growing up here, like I remember one of the coolest events I ever went to was this Colorado professional skier, Chris Davenport. He was the first guy to ski all the 14ers in Colorado,
Oh, cool.
58 of them, and like now that's like extremely common,
Okay.
but he was the first guy to do it and made this coffee table book that was super cool. And I remember going to my local ski shop and he did like a slideshow of it. And so when I was making this film, I was like, yo, I want to like have that flavor too. So like that's what the group rounds have been like. And then we do like film screenings, like one of them was like a white bed sheet on the wall, and like they're at like running stores and
Awesome.
yeah, so those are super fun, and then, yeah, now moving into film festivals and, ski film tour all fall.
What's your favorite part of all that? Like, is there like a certain setting that you're like you got most excited about?
I like all of it. I think I just like for me, it's awesome to be able to connect with so many people, but I think that, like, creating those community gatherings, like, what's most enriching about that for me is, like, seeing the connection that I'm able to create for other people.
Yeah, so it doesn't
And
matter where. It's
yeah.
just about the connection.
Yeah, whether that be like through a group run or like when we do one of these events, like I encourage people to like hang out and talk and make friends afterwards. And
Yeah.
like I remember like one of the group runs, like I met this dude John who was like he told me how nervous he was to come and like how he had to like psych himself up to get out of his car, and then like he like shut the place down. We were like chilling, drinking NA beers in the parking lot, and he was making all the friends, and like
That's awesome.
that's what it's about.
Yeah.
It's forming that opportunity for connection.
I love that you're doing that with the film. I mean, look, the film hit me really hard, and I want to talk about the film itself and making it. Because, I mean, we in the film, I don't like people. I don't know if they've seen it when they're watching this, but maybe you can speak to the experience of leading up to knowing you wanted to make the film and why it was really vital to you.
Yeah, it's kinda like twofold is, like, first, the motivation and that clarity
Yeah.
that I wanted to share my story and help people,
Hmm.
and then the second is, like, specifically making this film.
Yeah.
And for me, like, having struggled with mental health and suicidal thoughts my entire life, uh, like, part of what got me kind of to a place where I could ask for help. And honestly, like a big part of what kept me alive were other people's stories, because I really believe that stories have the power to help and change other people in the same way that pain can change things for ourselves. And so, like, there were a couple professional athletes like Corey Richards and Rob Carr who were really instrumental in me having the like courage to be able to ask for help. And so I knew like super early on that when I made it through this, there are definitely times where it felt like if I made it through this, but when I made it through it, that I was going to use all of this to help other people, and that I would share my story. And then I started doing that. Like I started that with writing an essay for Outside Magazine titled "We Need to Talk About Mental Health in the Mountains." And then I made a prior film, Ups and Downs. That one was all skiing and kind of like a more like esoteric vibe of like kind of like in just like abstract, like talking about my experience and using the mountains and valleys of ski touring as a metaphor for that.
Yeah.
Uh, but when I made that film, like I knew that it was going to help people and I knew that it would impact people. but like it blew my mind the like scale of impact that that had. And like really that was just coming from like this deep volition of like, I know that I have this within me, like this is my song and I need to sing it. But then I was like, whoa, like,
The
and
feedback
yeah,
is like, yeah. Okay.
yeah. And not just like, I knew that like our communities needed this conversation. Like, you know, we can talk about statistics of suicide rates, diagnosable mental illness in America or in the Rocky Mountain West. But like, I realized that communities and everyone realistically in our societies wants this conversation.
Yeah.
And so then after I created that last film and put it out into the world, uh, I pretty quickly got the clarity that I wanted to make another one because I wanted to create a film with more intention
Mhm.
and in pursuit of that mission of creating cultural change around mental health. And in a way that's not just a flash in the pan of
Yeah.
like, hey, this one ski film impacted me. Or I remember watching that. Like, I wanted to create something that becomes a movement and like, you know, we were just talking about has that longevity and sustainability of the impact.
Yeah, well, it feels like it's happening, not, you know, uh, not to be too like direct with it, but like everything I see that you're doing is reaching people in a very heartfelt way, and I mean, I guess I couldn't be any more direct with it, but it's like that's awesome. And like I think doing that obviously like is something like I feel very strongly about and telling stories. That's like why we're sitting here, right? I want to respond to that part of it specifically because I just came from a very meaningful lunch with Dr. Judith Landau. Speak Up, Reach Out was there, Your Hope Center, and Mountain Youth, and some first responders as well. And we had basically a brainstorming session and a discussion about a process that Dr. Landau has been employing around the world for over 3 decades to help restore communities, and it's called like a community resilience model. And there's no one answer to that. Was the very like like the thread through it all is like each time that the solutions are proposed, it's in response to what the community wants. And the only times that you can have this massive successful initiative is when the community is a part of that conversation. And the way she does that is by listening to people's stories and engaging them in those stories. And okay, so it was like very validating that I'm like, okay, I want to like hear people's stories, and that's you're telling your story. Like these things, I think are going to make a difference one way or another, and that's huge, and we should keep doing it, right? But there's also the like, man, like like we got to survive on stuff, like I have a career, you have a career too, but like we're very passionate about this, you know. How do you how do you lean into this while maintaining that, and how do you find the balance upstairs, like when things, like are moving, but maybe they don't happen as quickly as you want, or, like what are some of the practices you employ that, when you're in those moments, like what are your therapies? What are your coping mechanisms? How do you deal with that kind of stuff?
Yeah. I think a lot of it just comes from growing up and like believing in for like a huge portion of my life, like I didn't want to be alive. And now I want to be alive and I want to grow old and I want everything that comes with that.
Yeah.
And with that, I think it's been a lot easier to have some patience and like really see a bigger picture of like a multi-year, not necessarily plan, because I'm not real good at laying out a roadmap, but
Yeah. But you are
seeing
moving
like
forward. Yeah.
how it's gonna stack up
Uh-huh.
over years, not days or months or weeks, you know?
Yeah.
Um, for me, like taking care of myself comes from a more holistic place. So, like the way that I used to take care of myself, and maybe it wasn't so much taking care of myself, was skiing.
Mhm.
And then it became skiing and running.
Mhm.
And really, I was using both of those things as an escape and
Okay.
then my only coping mechanism.
I see.
So, like when I was younger, and this was like work that I, worked through with my neurologist and through therapy, was realizing like all the way back to a young age, like skiing held this position that I could get emotional control through getting positive chemicals in my brain. Like normally, namely through taking risks and primarily adrenaline.
Yeah.
And that would be a semblance of emotional control that I didn't have in the rest of my life. And then as I grew up as an adult, just the frustrations and stress of life itself, or the more dramatic or longer ebbs and flows of like manic or depressive episodes, like
Mhm.
I would cope with that through skiing, and then that became skiing and running. And now skiing and running are just like one piece of like what I consider just as physical movement. And like physical movement is definitely a core part of what I call my mental health toolkit. But the way that I take care of myself is really through my entirely renovated lifestyle. So it starts with a foundation of sleep. And then on top of that is gratitude practice, journaling practice, mindfulness meditation practice. It's really how I go about my life. So it's,
Yeah.
forming social connection and
Uh-huh.
engaging with things that fill me up and create a positive energy cycle. Like
Yeah.
for me, a lot of times that's creative outlets.
Uh-huh.
And then, physical movement just gets sprinkled on as
Yeah.
a little piece of that. But then like um, with balancing that with life, with career, with, everything going on, I think it kind of centers back to like this work that I do is rooted in purpose, and
Mhm.
it's rooted in service of others.
I love that. That's a huge thing for me too, to be of service to others, and it gives me purpose to have that. I think we have a lot in common as well. The practices you're employing your mental health toolkit are pretty much my mental health toolkit too. So if anybody's looking for any tips, like those are great ones. I could attest to it. I want to ask. So, the idea of like that skiing was like a mechanism for you to feel better. What was it like to parlay that into like a career aspect for a portion of your life? Because I'm curious, like if the enjoyment, that dopamine, rush, that stuff, like if it fit in a different way than it did prior to that being a professional aspect in your life.
Yeah, I I'd love to hear like a little bit. I know it's your podcast,
Yeah,
but
well,
like your side of that with music too. Because like for skiing,
yeah.
for me, like we always say like, oh no, like my passion's so pure that like it being my career isn't going to change that, and like it doesn't change that,
Yeah.
but it becomes like a layer of what you have to navigate with it.
Mhm.
So yeah, but like for me, like I was born on a pair of skis pretty much. Like I started skiing when I was 1.5, and um, I was kind of just like born to be on this track. So,
That's awesome.
uh, like my relationship with skiing, like was there from the beginning.
Your earliest memories, you're on skis.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like I think it was just like the fabric of my childhood, of our family, of everything. But then, like I started making money from skiing. Like the first time I made money from skiing
Mhm.
was in competition winnings when I was 15. Got sponsored, and
Yeah.
I'm 30 now, so it's basically half my life
Uh-huh.
that has been like some stages of a professional skiing career, uh, and it has been a lot to navigate. I think for a while there, especially when I was younger, in a lot of ways, I was trying to get validation and like external markers of success and status from that. Especially like for me, like I always wanted to be a pro skier. So that identity was where I was getting a lot of my self worth as well.
I know how
And
that is, yeah.
like no matter who you are, no matter what walk of life, whatever you're talking about, if it's a profession or not, is that external validation is never the solution to internal turmoil.
Mhm.
And like that was never where I was going to find happiness or peace.
Yeah.
And so for a while, that kind of like overtook things and had like a somewhat strained relationship with the professional side. But as I've done a lot of work on myself and just grown as a person, like my relationship with skiing is like looser, and like it can be whatever I want it to be. So like now I have a lot more fun skiing than like pretty much ever, which is awesome
Yeah.
for being,
Absolutely.
you know, this deep into it.
Yeah.
And now I think like I just kind of make my professional skiing career like what I want it to be, whatever it is in that moment, and appreciate it for what it is. Um, and, also use it as just a form of recreation and fun. And like, skiing always used to be like completely professional for me, but now it's like, nah, like, I'll just go like, go skin with my mom or like go ski with my friends. And like, doesn't have to be professional. It doesn't have to be in front of cameras. Doesn't have to go on the internet.
That's awesome. I think it sounds like a return to the original source of joy in it for you, which is obviously very healthy to not put that pressure on or not have it like be like, oh, if I don't win this race or something like all the time or whatever that is. That's great to hear. Last night you said something that struck me. I found really interesting. You said you thought it was kind of silly that you can go down a hill on these, like slabs of like plastic and wood and like, be looked up to and get paid for it and all that. And, what is that exactly to you, like to be in the public eye as an athlete? Because I do see the similarities like with music. And by the way, this is a conversation. You can just be like, I refuse to respond until you respond to my question or anything like that. So I'll keep asking until you throw one of those out there. But I'm like, you can throw it back at me anytime. But I am really curious about that because I also see like, yeah, I'm like playing bass, like I'm like, it's one string at a time. I do recognize like it's an art or whatever, but like I do think it's kind of like, like it's just something I've always done, since I was, I guess, like 13, and I was playing music since I was about 7 or 8. Just something I've always enjoyed doing. And to answer your question, it's just kind of, I don't really even think about it anymore because it became my identity. It wasn't only really until I lost the ability to do it that I realized how ingrained in me it truly is and how important that I be able to maintain that or at least have that. And that's also a catalyst for why I did wanted to do this because I was like, oh, like all my eggs are in one basket here, like, and can appreciate how you've spread out you've diversified your interests into things you can do that, support the life you want to lead. But like, what do you think about a culture, that like we all have to deal with in our heads, that like boost these like, silly slabs of wood, like playing with them or whatever. Like, what is that? What's your thoughts on how that gets us?
Yeah. I think it's silly, like how much emphasis we put on, for me, it's like the way I say it is like we're sliding down snow on pieces of plastic and wood and fiberglass and little metal edges.
Yes,
Like
more eloquent.
that's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Like it's just like a more sophisticated, more expensive version of like sledding. Like
Yeah, which is actually an Olympic sport technically, like with luge and all that. Yes, but I hear you. That's
yeah.
also like very difficult too.
But then like I think it's like easy to joke about and like be somewhat dismissive of, but like really like the importance of that and like, why I get propped up on a pedestal like
Mhm.
in my community or in society for being good at that
Yeah,
is really I think rooted in our sense for meaning or purpose or direction or even just joy. Because whatever it may be, like in my world, it's the sport of skiing has brought so much purpose and direction and meaning to people's lives. And that is a really beautiful thing. And it's beautiful that it comes from something as silly as just sliding down
yeah,
snow.
yeah,
And like, like the like other athletic, half of my life is running. And like
yep,
for me, like I don't run on a professional level. And running has been like what I joke about skiing being so frivolous or silly about.
yeah,
Like that's what running has become for me. It brings this sense of meaning and direction and purpose and passion and in some realms identity, but like also just like a way to explore the world and ourselves and like whatever it may be,
yeah,
sport, music, art, like that's beautiful that we have that. And it's a privilege to be able to have access to that. But like we should we should lean into that and celebrate that and find the meaning within that, but then be able to like pass that meaning on to others. And like that's what you do with your music. That's why like when you play a huge venue, like you're creating memories that are going to shape somebody's life.
Yeah.
And like my hope is that when I tell stories or, you know, like invite people into the sport of skiing, it becomes a way that they're welcomed into using that as a form of exploration for themselves or for life.
Yeah, I have a feeling the way you're doing it is absolutely building, core memories for a lot of like people who get to see your films. And I mean, I'm certain of it. It definitely struck me as like I finally was like understanding a little bit more of someone else's perspective of what it's like to be in that dark place, to be up against the, the hopelessness and the loneliness and not know where to go with it and not really understand like how I was going to go on, and I just kept like trying and I'd be back in that place again and try it again. And I'd keep be like getting back to that place. And, um, for me, it was very difficult to snap out of it, and it took a little while, and it was a scary time. And my family supported me, my band supported me, my friends did, and it wasn't until I actually started talking about it that anything really got like to a little bit of a better place, and a little bit more, and a little bit more. And I also recognized in that process, seeing a therapist, like like I have a physiological need for some medication, and it's nothing to be ashamed of in my opinion. And if you disagree, good for you, that's cool. It's okay.
No,
Yeah, yeah, no, no,
don't give them the oxygen.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, we all need something, right? Yeah, we all need that for sure. I guess what I'm saying is like I never saw that even in my life until some of these dark moments. And it was weird to me because I was like, I have all this stuff that I want to get back to, but I'm so far from that, in what like I felt like I was dealing with. So that was very hard. And I know we share that, but you say you've been dealing with this your whole life, which is very different than my experience. And I wonder like, how young did that start? And, that's heavy. What like, when did you realize that that was, like, something you were, like, contemplating, consciously? Because to me, it's like, I don't know, like, I wasn't that, I don't know, like, existentially aware maybe at a young age, but I'm curious what it was like to be a young person and deal with that. Because I know there's a lot of young people who have real pain out there, and I'd love to share, your experience with that while we're here.
Yeah. This is like one of the more meaningful sides of the work that I do. It's been pretty eye opening to see how many people have also been struggling realistically their entire lives. The earliest memories that I have of suicidal thoughts are from when I was 9 years old. And so to like clarify, like I don't think that I did have the existential awareness to understand like what was going on, or to understand like this is, whether that be like a milestone or just like a like semblance of reality at the time. Um, and I think a lot of that is just like societally we weren't talking about mental health. Like I didn't even have the language to explain what was going on, and like I was hiding it from that young of an age. So like building up barriers and kind of like building up my shell to not share that and to try to pretend that it wasn't real. And what's kind of uh, what's kind of amazing actually, and I think some people might understand this who have been through it, is like I wasn't even able to like access those memories until I did like extensive work on myself, like 3 4 years of talk therapy.
Mm.
Like is when I was able to like unlock that filing cabinet and be like, holy shit, there's this memory from fourth grade. And like that's, a protective mechanism. Like my brain had like put that away
Yeah,
so that,
compartmentalizes it away from, like, your everyday thoughts and all
yeah,
that. Yeah, it's too
yeah, to
much.
like try to protect yourself from the trauma of that. But, and I also look back in hindsight too, and like I think it'd be easy to like wonder like why was my childhood this way, or like when did it start, what were the factors, like what were the risk factors, or like what were the symptoms or signs. And I think as humans, we always want that clarity, but
Yep.
like I just don't spend too much energy on wondering that
Yeah,
because
that's
like
fair.
there were a million ups and downs within that,
Yeah.
but like I'm here now.
Yep.
And
That's cool.
one piece that I do wonder about and I think about though is what impact brain injuries had throughout the course of my life. Because I do look back and I kind of wonder like the first like bad concussion that I got was in elementary school, and I'd have to like probably have to ask my mom like what year it was,
If
see
it
if it
was before
correlates.
that started kind of
Yeah,
thing.
see if it correlates with like fourth grade or like within the year before. Um, yeah, so that like there's a lot of different factors, but
Mhm.
um, I think like what I've found is that by talking openly about that, like realistically, like entire life perspective, it's made a lot of people feel seen
Yeah.
for having those struggles because I think that oftentimes we want to package stories to have a beginning and an end.
Yeah.
And it's really nice when that works out. And I would love for everybody else's mental health journey to have a beginning and an end, and they're just like happy and at peace and
Yeah.
successful indefinitely
Oh, that
after.
would be wonderful. Yeah.
But that's not how it works.
No.
And so like there's that side that's like, I'm not really sure when this started and it is lifelong, but then like also like one of the things that I'm adamant about in my storytelling and my advocacy and like the other side that resonates is like this goes on indefinitely into the future too. Like this
Yeah.
is just part of my life. This is part of how I navigate life. And like there's struggle within that, there's strength within that, there's value within that. And like it's also beautiful.
Yeah.
Like because it's a part of who I am. And so like in my world, like the metaphors I always say is that uh like climbing a metaphor is a bad metaphor for life or for mental health because there's no summit. And then in running, it's the same thing. Running 100 miles is a bad metaphor for life because there's no finish line.
Mm, that's a great metaphor. And I mean, the idea of what you just said, not the running part, 100 miles. And we should talk about that too, because that is like, all right, so I probably wouldn't choose to walk 100 miles even. That's absolutely amazing to me that you've done that. And I watched your socials that I know you had friends helping you, that were on your team for that. What do you do? Like, I get physically, like, you need to be in incredible shape. I get that you have to train and all that, but what do you do for mental fitness to prepare for something like that? Because, like, 100 miles, first of all, how long, what was your time for that? Like, that's like, is that a full day? Like, what does that entail? Can you speak to that? Because that's an incredible thing to like focus for and get through. I think that in and of itself shows the kind of power you are capable of. Like that's amazing.
It's interesting. It's a heck of an experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like for listeners, like what we're talking about is running 100-mile ultra marathons. And personally I've ran 4 at this point, and they don't get easier, but you learn more each
Yeah.
time. So like um there's so many different factors, like you say, like obviously there's the physical side and training, and really I think that like training isn't just like, oh, I like spent 6 months to get fit. It's like really like over the course of your lifetime, like you built a really strong aerobic engine, like you built like a way to interact and move in the mountains. And then
Mm.
um the like I think a lot of underappreciated parts of it are like the fueling side of things, hydration side of things, like planning and execution. Like for a 100 miler, like I have so many spreadsheets. It's like extremely nerdy. But then like the mental side is
Real quick, because spreadsheets are a big part of my better half's life. She works with them all the time, and I'm really amazed at like what she can do with them. I'm really curious how you apply that to a 100-mile journey.
yeah. So like I start with a pace chart. So build out every segment of the race by distance, elevation gain, elevation loss, and then build that out by what pace I want to run or what like cumulative time I want to run for that segment. And then with the reason that like that's worthwhile is because then you're planning your nutrition and hydration.
Mm.
So like I I eat 350 calories an hour.
Okay.
And so, like, if I can plan my race, then I know exactly how many calories I'm gonna need, and I know what food I'm gonna take with me, and then you're not carrying a lot of extra food or running out. Um, and then with that, like, building out, contingency plans, both for time and for nutrition.
Hmm.
So, uh, yeah, I'm like race week, I'm rocking 2 monitors.
That's fantastic. I
Yeah.
mean, I like to be prepared for concerts. Like I don't write a ton of stuff down, but I will like go over the songs like too much where I'm just like we call them reps. We want to get a lot of reps in before we actually play something live. And I can see it's just another way of being prepared the way that you want to be and feel like you should be.
Yeah.
Um, that's really cool to hear. Um, so how long did this race take you?
Yeah.
Or the most recent one, which I was like watching while you were going through it.
Yeah, so
I
in the
kn-
film, that's the 2022 Leadville 100. That one took 24 and a half hours. And then this year, well, last year and this year, I ran Leadville again. And this year was slow. This year was kind of brutal, just over
Mhm.
29 hours,
Okay.
which honestly gave me an appreciation for like, hey, like that 24-hour time is actually pretty fast, like,
Did
or
well. Yeah.
fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, this year was just kind of like, and like that's what like they don't get easier. Like, and definitely like got to apply a lot of lessons, but like this one was ugly. Like, kind of everything that was going wrong could go wrong, and then like eventually my tendons just locked up, and I was like, well, I'm gonna walk this in,
But you
walk the
finished.
last 40
You
miles.
completed it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Um,
mean, look, I'll relate to this in something that actually happened in Colorado very recently that like personalizing this and in no way was this 100 miles or anything like that. But the day after my band performed at Red Rocks, my family, we all went to a friend's home and they live where there's a lot of wilderness. And one of the families, there were three families there, including mine. And they were like, let's do a hike like the morning after Red Rocks. And I'm like, 6 weeks into the tour and I was all like jovial and energetic the first, I don't know, 500 feet, or something like, and I started to feel it and I was like, oh, I'll power through. It can't be that long of a hike or whatever. And as we went, it became very apparent that like, I was like, I saw the first like long stretch, of like what ended up being like 6, 7 mile hike. And that I was at altitude. I was completely exhausted. Like I needed to just basically spend that day in bed was the idea at that point. And I was like, well, fuck it. I'm still going to do it. And I'm going to finish it no matter how slow I have to go because I told myself I was going to get out there and do this and I'm still going to do it. It doesn't matter. I just want to finish it. I don't want to leave it incomplete and be like, oh, I wish I got through it. Nowhere near the same kind of preparation or anything like that. But literally, at the end of the thing, I was like this kind of speed, and I just kept going, and I just was like, as long as I'm moving forward, it's okay. And I think there's something to this, idea of like getting through a thing, no matter how you do it, is really meaningful regardless of your time, regardless of like your, intention and your goal, or comparing yourself to someone else or comparing yourself even to yourself in a different time in your life. I think it's really like important to remember we're human and like our bodies don't always do the things we want them to do. And, I've learned that in a bunch of different ways. And it was whether it's a healthy or unhealthy reminder when I was going through it of like just how slow I had to go to get there. I'm totally okay with it. And to be honest, I had all these moments on that hike, which turned into a very slow walk, where I would just have to stop. And I would like I'm sure some of this was like you look around you, and you just appreciate the things around you and how they're moving, and how they're existing. And this state is absolutely incredibly beautiful. I find just so much joy in seeing nature here, and being immersed in it, and connecting with it as much as I can. And um, this place that we're in now. There's a movie that was made also about it called The Paradise Paradox or Paradise Paradox, and um, It's really interesting to me how it can present such beauty and so much enjoyment, but there's also a dark side to that that we're talking about, and that, I'm trying to address here, particular with Mountains and Minds, just like you're addressing with your film and the way you're reaching communities and going out there personally to talk about your experience. And I don't think it's unlike what's going on in a lot of other places. And you said something also last night that we've talked about before, how your experience is a microcosm of this community, and this community is a microcosm of Colorado, and that's a microcosm of the nation and then the world. Um, when you take a step back and look at the life you're living and going through these things, and you realize how there's these same situations in other places, does that help you? Because for me, it's like, and I'll let you answer. Sorry, I asked a question, then I'm like answering it for you. It's totally, I got to work on that. Not the best podcaster yet, but I'll let you answer. But I wonder, like, how does that make you feel?
I think there's like both sides to it. Like one, it's validating that other people are struggling, and then the flip side of that is it's terrifying and like heartbreaking and overwhelming. And it goes back to that like sense of urgency or like burden of like we need to change this. We need to save people's lives now.
Yeah,
And
I feel that.
that's the overwhelming side of it.
Hmm.
Uh, but you got to sit with it. And I think like the value of it is like in the same way that me telling my story, creating films, connecting with people in person or online, like that helps people feel less alone.
Hmm.
Like the reality of what's happening on a community or societal level, like proves how far from alone we really are.
Yeah.
And we need to be able to channel that so that we can use that to normalize conversations around mental health and suicide as a whole,
Hmm.
so that we can create a tidal swell of community and societal support
Yeah.
so that we get to, you know, uh, not just sit with how terrible and uncomfortable it is, but use that as kind of fire.
Yeah. Gasoline. Let's throw some gasoline on. I'm with it. I feel you. Yeah, and I think like the other side of being well, Chef Robert Irvine was sitting in this chair earlier today when he told me about empathetic leadership. I think that's very much a quality that we all need to try to embody more, and you can't have enough of, because like if we're really listening to the people around us, if we're really feeling what we feel, internalizing that and putting ourselves in someone else's shoes, we're really gonna, grasp like that maybe like our experience can benefit another by sharing that, by listening to someone, and then leading in a way that hopefully is respectful of that. And I think, that little microcosm is like, it's a little easier to deal with, as you start seeing like it's harder to get to the bigger pond or whatever that is. But when we're on this type of mission, it's like it's so like, yeah, like I want this stuff to happen now. But what I've realized also is like we just, like we're passionate about it because we have big hearts and we want people to not have pain, which is a wonderful thing. But man, like, we got to pace ourselves, just like you're doing those spreadsheets, this kind of work is taxing, like, it's not easy to do the things you're doing. And I wonder, just looking forward, like experiencing all of this the way you have, like, has the way you set your goals like altered over the time, and what are some of those that you're hoping to reach moving forward?
Yeah. I guess it's become like a theme of this conversation is that longevity piece
Yeah,
and kind of patience.
good.
Um, I'm I'm a very driven person, but uh, not necessarily goal driven. Um, like now when I look at like what are the next things I want to pursue, like athletically, I'm thinking about things on uh, pretty big scale, like a couple like really big projects that will take like a year of commitment athletically, but then like figuring out like, well, like is that before like marriage and kids? And, you know, what's like a realistic timeline on things like that? But then on the like advocacy or creative or storytelling side of things, uh, I'm working through it right now, like
Yeah.
figuring out like, you know, kind of like I said, like that first film, like I made it because I just needed to sing my song.
Yeah.
And then I was like, whoa, I need to do more of this, but with more intention and
Uh-huh.
mission behind it.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, okay, now I want to keep doing more of this with that same level of intention and mission, but with the foresight of like, what are the like, you know, what's the 1 year, 5 year plan of like where these things go? I don't really find much value in looking past 5 years.
Yeah. I
Um,
get that.
I I think some of that's just rooted in being young still, and then I think some of that's just also like having a pretty deep understanding of the fragility of life.
Yeah.
Like
I mean, they
it's
could be gone in a moment. We're like, for any number of reasons, right? But I think that's
yeah.
good to not go too far out with
Yeah.
things.
When you were asking about the Paradise Paradox or bringing that up,
Yeah,
it made me want to share one thing was
please.
uh, like the value of these conversations, the value of the work that I do, the value of a film like that, like on surface level, it seems like it's in mountain communities. And maybe it's just the Vail Valley, or maybe it's mountain communities across the West, or maybe it's mountain communities like across America that include, you know, like places in Vermont, New England, and whatnot.
Mhm.
Um, and like for me, like when skiing or running are the entry point in the vehicles for that, like it on the surface, it seems like that's like for that community, for people who are passionate about that sport or recreation. But like really, like the point of these stories is that they're applicable on any level.
Mhm.
And so when we're talking about the Paradise Paradox, basically what that means is that when we live in a place like this, we're in the Vail Valley right now, like this is paradise, no doubt. Like,
Yeah,
you know,
that's amazing.
it's people's
Amazing place.
screensavers when they get back to their desk in
Yeah,
Chicago
yeah,
for good reason.
yeah.
It's gorgeous. And like when we wake up in the morning, get to look at the mountains around us, like we are like 100% confident we live in paradise. What's paradoxical about that is that while we live in paradise, while so many things in life can be so amazing, we can also struggle. And when we only think of life here as living the dream or this idyllic life paradise, like it invalidates that we can also be struggling.
Mhm.
But that like extrapolates onto any level, onto a societal level. Like maybe like people's paradise is that they have their dream job.
Yeah,
But like if they have their dream job and they accomplished every goal that they set out or was expected of them, and then they're not happy,
yeah.
like it feels like they're not allowed to struggle or they're not allowed to, you know, have discontent with their life. Like that's paradoxical too.
It is.
And that paradise can come in any form.
Yeah.
And, you know, maybe it's like I've always wanted to have a family and now I have kids and a wife. And like for the record, I don't. But hypothetically, like, and be like, that's what I've always wanted. Like I reached paradise,
Mhm.
but like I'm not happy. And like that's the value of these conversations.
Yeah,
And I think like when I say like that my story is the story of our community and like that's mountain towns, but mountain towns are the story of the Mountain West, and the Mountain West is the story of America. Like that's what I really mean.
I get it now, in more detail and very eloquently put. Thank you. The other side of it that I see that, I take out of it is, you see a place like this, like for somebody who doesn't live here, hasn't grown up in this type of environment, and, you think, "Oh, if I go there, my problems will disappear, they will dissolve because I'm in this fantastic environment." And the truth is we can't, move through our problems just by moving. There's a lot more to it. There's work involved, and there's the acknowledgement of, where we're at and dealing with that and talking through it, but hopefully with someone who's really able to listen the right way. And I think we need more of that in the world. And you're creating space for that, which, I'm really grateful for and also trying to do myself. And it's awesome to just like have begun my own journey with this so recently. Like I started the podcast this year, and now I'm sitting in this world class performing arts center, as part of a summit to do this with a whole bunch of amazing people who believe in it and with you. And, it's really, I think, validating too, in the sense of like, I was really close to like being in a really like, or just disappearing, being in another existence, whatever that is for however you believe in it. And I think there's just like that idea of that I just want to share is like, if you can get through that stuff, there's usually a damn good reason you make it through. And for me, the last little bit of all that is, you know, I ended up like using the obstacle, and it was a book that I read that really helped me see that, called The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday, as like a way to move forward, you know, with my issues and with my pain, but use it to benefit others. And I challenge anybody who's going through this stuff to, utilize, your own stuff to help somebody else. And I think if you can tune yourself to that, like it can become its own, little tool in the mental health toolkit, because it's really, I've found just like connecting with people after getting through that, like whether I'm on tour in my neighborhood and seeing neighbors, some of the neighbors that used to be like, when I'd see them, it was like, oh, I got to talk to that guy again or whatever, like now it's like, oh, I get to talk to that guy again. And that's a really exciting, fun, positive thing to, have shifted my mind to. And it's not easy to get there. I'm still doing work on it. I still hit snags in the, in that. And, I'm just grateful to get to like connect with you, because I feel like our stories have so much alignment, and like the way we want to reach people has so much alignment. And we're even talking about some other things, that will come of like this whole summit that I think we'll be, able to do together, that I'm looking forward to, that will just like leave as a little cliffhanger in the podcast. But I mean, like, just thank you for being who you are. I know you've had so much in your life, and like you're in a much better place now, but I really feel like you getting through your stuff is going to inspire people who need that. And that's like helping me feel better about reaching the goals in my mission, which is basically the same as to, give a fuck about mental health. And I have the hat. I love the hat. Great hat. And I hope others choose to support and get that hat. It's awesome. And I mean, just thank you for, being here, being open and taking part in what could be bad. And let's just keep in touch and, keep talking and keep sharing our stories.
Thanks, Benj. I think it's a pleasure to be able to connect with you. I think that you've been on stage and living life as a rock star for so long that you probably understand what I mean by this, that sometimes it's uncomfortable to like sit with like uh even though it's wholehearted, a compliment like that. So thank you very much. I think that a lot of like what we've been talking about is like how we help other people and how we help this mission or community or society for the future. And I think like what we're kind of speaking to is like being in service of others is a cheat code
Yeah.
for finding purpose in life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Got to balance that with taking care of yourself. But I'm glad that we're both finding that purpose and being of service.
Yeah. Me too. Me too. And anytime you need, an ear, I'm here for you. And I got one last question for you. This is the fun curveball I probably should have warned you about. This is a question about music. I like to wrap up the pods with. I think you've answered this, but we'll see if you answer with the same one as you answered at the Mountain Games. But I like to ask people if there was a piece of music, an album, even preferably a song or a couple songs or something like that, that really inspires you and has helped you get through something, and maybe share about that. And that's my last one for the pod.
Yeah. Man, um, I do wish that I had had a heads up for that question. But I do know last time I answered with a Tom Petty song, and I'll answer with a Tom Petty song again.
Cool.
Um, this time I'll answer with You Don't Know How It Feels. Um, I listened to that song a lot when I was just like in full crisis, and I
Mhm.
didn't even understand like what I was feeling or what I was going through. But just sitting, I remember sitting in Jackson Hole backcountry uh, on a rock with my skis alone. I'm not supposed to ski alone in the backcountry, but
Mhm.
um, drinking a beer and smoking a joint and listening to that song on repeat. And little spoiler alert, I'm 4.5 years sober, so those things aren't there anymore.
Yeah.
Uh, but I think that like the lesson of just like sitting in that
Mhm.
and that song being the vehicle for learning how to do that is kind of respective of this journey. So um, I guess I'm gonna listen to that on my drive home.
It's a beautiful song. Perfect answer. Appreciate it. I love that you pulled Tom Petty into this both times. He's missed. He's one of my favorites, and certainly, has left the world with a lot of beautiful music to enjoy and be inspired by. So I'm glad you reminded me of how amazing that guy is and what music can do. Thank you. Um, that's it, my friend. Thank you very much. Guys, I appreciate you tuning in. This was another episode of What Could Be Bad. We'll be back next week with another one. Be good to yourselves, be good to others. We'll see you.